Welcome to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. Our goal is to help you maximize your church's potential. You'll hear from top leaders in children's, student, and family ministry about the principles and practices they use. Now here's your host, Nick Blevins.
Welcome to episode 154 of the podcast. In this episode, I'm talking with Justin Edge of Life.Church. Justin leads kids ministry there at Life.Church. So a few episodes ago, we talked to Vince Parker about student ministry. In this episode, we talk about kids ministry. What does that look like at Life.Church? How does that work in a multi-site church where Justin is working with the central team, kind of helping export, create resources, provide direction and coaching to all of the Life.Church kids ministries at their campuses? And how does it work at the campus? Like, what do they look like in terms of leading, staffing ratios? What do they look for in staff? How does that structured? All that stuff. We kind of just dive into that, what it looks like at Life.Church. And so you're going to love this interview. Want to let you know that the email exclusive for this, and if you haven't signed up for my email list, be sure to do that every week. Now I'm going to be sending an email about the podcast, and I'll include something in there that you can't get anywhere else. And for this one, it's going to be a link to my current favorite free resource from Life.Church as it relates to kids ministry. You know, they have the great open resources site, open.life.church, and there's tons of stuff in there. We talk about that a little bit in the interview, but I'll give you a link to what is my favorite kids resource from Life.Church on the open site right now. And you can subscribe to that. You can get that plus show notes and anything else at nickblevins.com/episode 154. But let's go ahead now and jump into my conversation with Justin Edge about kids ministry at Life.Church. Today I'm talking with Justin Edge of Life.Church. Welcome to the podcast, Justin.
How you going, man?
Doing well, man. Tell us a little bit about you, your family, and your role at Life.Church as we get rolling.
Yeah, man. My name is Justin Edge. I've been a part of Life.Church for about 12 years now, which is a little surreal, but very exciting. The mission I get to be a part of each and every day. My role here at Life.Church is I am what we call the central ministry leader for Life Kids. And what that essentially means is I oversee Life Kids at all of our locations. And I get to do that with a great team around me. I've been married for 16 years to my beautiful wife, Sheena Edge, and I got two little girls, Brooklyn and Bailey Edge, which is interesting, Nick, is this past weekend, my daughter actually graduated out of Life Kids, and so she's now in big church. And when we started, she was just 6 weeks old when she started, and now she's gone all the way through Life Kids, which is an absolute honor because just like a lot of people listening right now, is you want your kids to have a way better experience than you've ever had at church. You want them to love God more, and fall in love with the church more. And it's been amazing to see both my girls grow up through Life.Church's kids ministry. So I'm super excited about their future. So yeah, that's a little bit about my role and me and my family.
That's awesome. Now, to recount for me, what are a couple of the roles that you did before this? Since you've been there that long, what are some of the other jobs you've had there?
Yeah, so whenever I started out at our Oklahoma City campus, which is known as our broadcast location. And I was there for 3.5 years in an introductory kids role. My title was along the lines of a Life Kids coordinator. And I did that for 3.5 years. Absolutely loved it. I learned so much in those first 3.5 years. And then, God started doing some amazing things and allowed Life.Church to just continue growing. And we launched a campus in the Yukon area, which is just southwest of Oklahoma City in the suburb. We launched there, and I was the kids pastor there for 1.5 years because they needed someone there because it was blowing up. And so I was there for 1.5 years, and I did that. And then Allison Evans, who is my boss, was in a position where they needed to make some big changes at Central to help put ourselves in a position for growth for the future. And she asked me to interview and be a part of the role I'm in now. And so I've been in this role for 8 years now, which is amazing, still learning each and every day. But like I said, just truly honored and blessed to be in this position.
Awesome. So we want to kind of get a look inside Life Kids and what it looks like at the campus, what it looks like centrally where you're spending most of your time. But tell us a little bit about you. What does a typical week look like in your role at Life.Church?
It's always going to start. Each day is going to start with a good cup of coffee. I don't know about you, but man, I'm a coffee snob, and so I'm loving drinking some coffee, hanging out. Always make some connections with people. And if you don't mind being a little practical here, I can kind of give you some practical things that I actually do. This may sound weird, but I think it's super important to have like a relational catch-up time. And so with my team, I'm just making sure I'm connecting with them here in the office, asking about their week. I'm always asking about their family, what's going on. We're talking about shoes. We're talking about cars. We're talking about different things. But we do that. But when I start to get to the practical duties of my job, every Monday morning, I go to a thing called 15 and 5. It's a really, I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but it's a really cool software, I guess you can say, and it's designed around taking 15 minutes to ask 5 questions. And so every Life Kids pastor across the organization fills out a 15 and 5. And so we have 33 locations right now. And so we have those 33 kids pastors fill out a 15 and 5, and we have 7 area leaders. So think about it as someone who's in role as a kids pastor that also provides support to campuses that are near them or within a certain region. So I have 7 of those high level leaders that I really lean on and trust. I actually observe their 15 and 5s. And so it allows me to get a really good snapshot on what's happening practical in the life of Life Kids. And so I'll do that. We do a thing called Tableau. I'm not sure if you've heard of that. But with them,
I have, but only because I've talked to Allie a number of times about like data at Life.Church and like tracking involvement, assimilation, and she's talked about that, but understand what it is. I could never use it without like a great tutorial. So for anybody who's not familiar, tell us what it is.
Yeah, Tableau is so there's just 2 things in what we like to communicate. And we'll talk about this later, Nick, but we have free resources that Life.Church provides, and we love to give to the capital C Church. And one of them is called Church Metrics. Church Metrics is a place where you can input data and observe data. Tableau is a way that you can take that data from Church Metrics and expand it to more of a visual view of the data that you're wanting to see. And so lots of graphs, charts, and as my wife would say, a lot of pretty colors in there to help really get a true understanding of what's happening on the ministry. And I'll give you a quick story. There were times where a campus pastor would walk down the hallway, or a Life Kids pastor would walk down the hallway, and they could look inside the rooms and it looks like everything is fine. Looks like things have got it under control, whatever it may be. And people would say, yeah, it looks like things are going. But over time, we were having a tough time figuring out, why is that room not growing, or why is that room not being successful, whatever it may be. And it wasn't until really getting Tableau or getting some sort of software or resource, whatever it works for you, to be able to quantify and look at the data to go, you know what, everything looks like it was fine because the room was quote unquote managed well, but really the ratios were way off, and we need more leaders in there and allow us to really understand trends of where we are getting success at, where we are struggling at. And so Tableau allows us to do that. And 2 reports that I look at for me personally is I'm looking at how many kids that we had from the following weekend, but I'm also looking at how many new kids came in and how many new families came in. Those are huge things for us. And then also is leader engagement. How well are our rooms being led from the mindset of, did we have enough leaders in place to quote unquote do good ministry? One half of it is making sure you have enough leaders in the room. And the second half, of course, is also very, very important, is making sure that they're trained well and led well and they're actually doing the ministry. So Tableau is just something I look at. It gives me a good, quick snapshot on how things are going. So that's Tableau.
Can I ask another quick question there? You may not know the answer because we did not prepare to talk about this. But you mentioned like you watch the attendance from the last weekend, which everybody can relate to that. And obviously, you know what attendance has been and kind of what your goal is and where it's going. But you also said new families. Do you have any type of benchmark for new families? And I know it's different for every campus because they're different sizes, but I mean, is there like a, we'd love to have this % of new families, or do you just kind of look at just to see the number? And if it changes drastically, then you pay attention?
It's interesting. That's a good question, Nick, because I don't know if I have like a benchmark of I need to see this many new families come each and every week, but we can see, just like any church right now, you can see an average of where you are. You can go, okay, we average 15 new families a weekend, or we may average 7 new families a weekend, or up to 30 or 40, whatever campus it may be. I would really look at like, what is that average? And then what can I do to build that average higher? So instead of us putting a blanket across on, hey, you need to have 20% new families, you got to have 15 new families, we always just lead them to outcomes. And what our outcomes are is more families will come in the door each and every weekend. And so the questions are going to turn back around as, what are you doing to get in the community? What are you doing to invite? Even how you reach new families is, what do you do on the weekend? Like what you do in the room, because whenever you're successful in the room, or when your guest services leader provides an amazing customer service experience, people talk about all the time what experiences they love and what experiences they did not have a great time at. And we just want to be a ministry that people attend and they love it so much that they want to share with someone else. So yeah, that's kind of the answer to that.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about your week. Is there more that you want to share with us though, after you've talked with people and you've gotten some of these updates on these 15.5s and looked at Tableau, some of the data? Anything else about your typical week? Like, I think what might be helpful is, so you're centrally located. Yeah. So, and you're helping lead and facilitate kids ministry at all these campuses, especially for somebody who may not be familiar with like multi-site. What are you spending most of your time on during the week? Is it talking with these campus kids ministry leaders, helping them? Is it the content development, the curriculum that is created and exported? It's probably both. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Man, with how we're set up, we are a 8-person central next gen team. And so for next gen for us is everything from birth up through seniors in high school. So I lead everything up through 5th and 6th grade area. And then Vince Parker, my coworker, my peer, if you will, he leads everything from that 5th and 6th grade up to seniors. And so we actually meet, Vince and Allison and myself meet every 2 weeks. And we just talk about what are we doing as a next gen ministry, not Life Kids and Switch, but what are we collectively doing to help bring in new families, to help to collaborate together, because I may bring ideas that may help Switch, and Vince definitely brings ideas to help Life Kids out. So we do a lot of that. We do that every 2 weeks or so. But like you were saying, Nick, I think a big thing of my time is I'm connecting with those area leaders because there's something going on. And back on that 15 and 5, I'll ask questions. And one of the questions that I'll ask that I think is pretty important is, how can I care for or celebrate someone in your area this week? It's such a cool opportunity for me to be able to hear about something that's happening at our Rio Rancho campus, or something that's happening at our Albany campus. And I can reach out to the kids pastor and go, hey, Amy, you're doing a fantastic job. And the reason why I can celebrate that is because I know her area leader is bragging on her on where she's doing good. And it allows Amy, for instance, to really know that she is doing a good job. She is leading well. And so I use my opportunity to get to touch base. And so I am doing everything in my power to not distance myself from the relationships. Because the whole reason about that area leadership, I'll elaborate on that for a second. We feel that's super important because you or myself cannot lead 33 locations. We cannot fully help those people be the very best that they can be. But I'm easily capable to lead 3 people, help 4 people, elaborate on that span of care and allow our leaders to truly feel heard, really know what's going on. And the other way around, it allows them to have more frequent conversations throughout the week. So I'm really spending a lot of time with my area leaders, investing in them, helping them, processing with them, brainstorming with them, So there's a lot of collaboration in there. Outside of that, man, my week, just like anyone else's, is pretty wild. I just have a goal each and every day to make sure I have more margin. Because the more margin I have, it creates more opportunities for me to be open to what God has for me that week. If my calendar is full of to-dos and things, then I don't have opportunities to really help people out when they really need some help.
Yeah. And I think anybody can relate too, because even though they're not going to be responsible for 7 area leaders or whatever it is, 3 area leaders and 33 campus pastors, everybody listening might have experience leading 30 volunteers, and you can't do that well either. I remember being there, and I needed to get some other level of leadership in there just to be able to grow that, to 60. So that's good. So you don't directly lead any campus pastors at this point, campus kids pastors. It's all through the area leaders.
Yeah, I'll lead the 7 area leaders, which are also Life Kids pastors. Yeah. And what you're saying, Nick, in that model that I'm sharing, we do that. Each Life Kids pastor does the same thing with their coaches, which are kind of that first level of leadership below staff on the grounds. They're coaches and they're volunteer high level leaders that we've handpicked. Like, for instance, even you, Nick, if you attended Life.Church and made it your home and you wanted to serve, coaching is not even something you can sign up to serve. You have to be hand selected to be in that role, because that span of care model that I'm talking about now, our senior pastor, Craig Rochelle, leads that down to us, and we push that down as far deep as we can.
That's good. So I want to talk about, staff at Central versus staff at campus, how that works. And you already mentioned eight folks, I think it was 8 that was on the Central Kids team. Like, what do they do, and like, what are their roles? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. We're very mirrored. For instance, we have Allison Evans, who oversees all of Next Gen, kind of the vision and direction for the whole ministry on where we're going. She's very, if you can think kind of tactile, she's very central focused. So she's partnering with our creative media team a lot. She's partnering with the DLT, our directional leadership team, our life groups, life missions, which is our small group community within the whole church. She's connecting with them. She leads Vince and myself. So Vince and I both have an associate Life Kids or associate central ministry leaders on the Switch side, and on the kids side, we each have project leaders inside of that, and then we have one admin on our team. And so for Life Kids, I can speak for us specifically. There might be some projects that we're rolling out, some really cool things that we're focusing on. Then I'll allow my project leader, Sean, to really take the ownership of that and really push those things down. So I'm casting vision at him, what I want to look like, and then he's really taking it from there. My associate, Britton, an incredible leader, her and I, we work very closely together. And the way that we talk to our team, it's anything that she says I agree with, and whatever I say she agrees with. We very much work together and collaborate well. And so that's kind of the crux of how our groups are broken down.
And then let's talk campus, which is what obviously most people are going to relate to, because they lead a lot of listeners probably lead children's ministry at a church, or maybe they lead Next Gen, and so they got somebody on their team doing that. So what does a campus kids pastor role look like? And even in terms of ratios, like how many, campus kids pastors exist at a campus for, X number of kids?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a loaded question, Nick, but I'll try to do my best to keep it quick. Yeah, we have every campus that we launch, every location that we have, and this is something I'm very passionate about, is we have one kids pastor on the ground. And so I talk to other teams and other churches who are doing some really good things, but they're always asking that question: how do I staff? How do I structure? I'm a big fan of proponent. Instead of doing multiple part-time staff, which that might be what's best for you right now, but what I have found is whenever you have one person who's fully owning the ministry, that means you have one person who's going to bed at night, staying up late passionately cares about making sure that ministry is running to its full tilt, and allows that campus pastor to go to one person. Who's that person holding responsible? Who's that one person who has the vision and direction for our ministry needs to go? And so our model which we enjoy, obviously, is having that one Life Kids pastor on the ground. And then we will add additional people as the campus grows. And I'll kind of hang out on that part, if you don't mind, on the staffing structure.
Yeah,
so Life Kids pastor, they're on the ground. That's what they do. And that's if we're portable, we're in a school, we're in a hotel lobby, whatever it may, or a ballroom, or if it's a permanent location, these standards are exactly the same. So they're hired on, they're kids pastor, they're that role. Whenever you hit 250 kids consistently over a 6 to 8 week period, that's when the conversation really starts opening up to adding an additional team member. Because whenever you're at 250, you more than likely are at 3 services on a campus and maybe even 4 services on a campus. Now, there's a couple things that we can determine. There might be a successful Life Kids pastor that has plenty of leaders that are doing fantastic job. Their distribution of services are really spread out. They may not feel like they're in a need to have that second person, but we're still looking to add that second person, because one thing that hit me about 6 years ago that took us a long time to grow from, and it gave me a good base for future launches, is we did that. We had one person who started and was doing good, but then quickly we found out the campus blew up. It started growing extremely fast, and we added people as we felt like we needed to. We needed to. But what happened, it almost took us a year and a half to fully catch up to caring for people to where the ministry was, because the ministry was outpacing our ability to really lead it. And so what yielded out of that is a lot of reactive instead of proactive things. And so now we try to be very proactive. So the second benchmark is after we get 250, the next hire is 500. So once you have 250, you add that second person. When you get to 500, you add a third person. And then from there, it's really interesting. It goes every 250 we're looking to add. But what's really awesome that I love is our internship program that we called Leadership XP, or for short, LXP. We have summer internships, which we're in the middle of right now, and we have full-time internships, which is absolutely phenomenal because it allows two things. It allows them to really understand the candidate or the intern. Is this really what I want to do? Is full-time ministry where my next step is? And second fold, it allows us as a team to really give someone really boots on the ground, great practical opportunities to help lead, make a difference, and it helps us significantly on the campus to lead at a high level. And so the numbers that we're looking at to recap is like that 250 is every time we hit 250 additional, but we're also looking at numbers of services and even blocks of time. And a block of time for us is, do they have Saturday night services, Sunday morning services, Sunday night services? Because if you have Saturday night, Sunday morning, Sunday night, that's a lot of time away. It's a lot of time away for your family. It's a lot to ask from one person. Yeah. And so that in a nutshell is kind of the things that we look overarching to help determine for future additional team, future people on our team. So
that's good. Anybody listening can easily see if you're having one full-time staff person for 250 kids, that's a lot less than most churches. I have a survey of like 1,000 churches have taken where I want to say, on average, a church has one full-time equivalent person for every something like 90-some kids, 97, close to 100, 1 to 100. And for sure, the larger a church gets, the less staff they have per kid. You know what I mean? But a big reason you can do that is because you do have the central team that can export things, and like, the campus level, they're carrying that out. And I do want to talk more about the campus level, but essentially, what are you creating that then campus kids pastors use, and how does that work?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we provide at Central that allows our teams to do what they're called to do, and that's to lead kids and students to become fully devoted followers of Christ, is the content. We take the content completely out of their hands, and I mean that in a good way. I mean that in a position to where they don't have to worry about what next week content's going to look like, where do I buy the stuff at, what do I need to prepare for? We at Central do all of that. We prepare that for them and send it to them. All their content is uploaded for them, everything. The great thing about that is if, with our team, we definitely have people who are passionate about content and passionate about curriculum and helping kids connect to God's word. And so we actually use them all the time for feedback. We put them in thrashing sessions to know, like, hey, this is what we should change. This is what we should add. We allow that feedback to be very, very open, because this would not be successful at all if Central was saying, hey, campus, do it this way. That's not what it is. It's definitely a two-way road. We're listening to their feedback on the ground and then making those tweaks and adjustments to help them be successful. So content's one thing. Another thing is even our social media. We want to provide them with all the social media content that they'll need. Even we did a weekend back, and this last weekend, well, while this is being recorded, the first weekend of June, family weekend. We provided a lot of direction on how we can connect with families, how to create a fun, engaging environment that they didn't have to recreate the wheel on. They can just plug and play with their own flair and own quote unquote personality, if you will. One thing I'd love to share on real quick, Nick, we actually do a thing called Streamline. It's an internal ordering process that we have selected. And what it is we have the same curriculum at every one of our locations. We actually have the same toys in the same rooms at all of our locations because we feel consistency is key. And so it's super easy for a campus. They don't have to worry about what toys to purchase, what content to get. And so if they need additional toy or maybe a toy breaks or whatever, they can go and Streamline. If they've got to order more shirts, they don't have to go to a local printing company to figure all that out. They can just go to our internal page and do that. And so if you're a multi-site church or if you're someone who leads multiple ministries like that, even creating something simple like a page that has 15, 20 Amazon links on it to let your team know, hey, if you need something, here's the link to it. It doesn't have to be that difficult. Really simple, practical things, because what it does, and what I talked about was margin earlier, it allows them to have margin to do what's most important, and that's connecting with volunteers, connecting with parents, and getting in their community. And so those are just some quick things that we do to really help them gain more margin to lead.
That's awesome. And we were talking a little bit before we record about like how far out are you doing curriculum that they're using, and then also speak to how really any church could use that curriculum.
Yeah. So, for instance, during this recording right now, Nick, we're early June. We're actually doing the video shoot and beginning the editing right now. We're doing a video shoot for something that's going to play in August to September. So we're a couple months out from we're shooting to being done. And so we'll do a final review that we will all do, the creative media team, my team, and we'll bring in some campus staff. Once again, like I said, the feedback is important to observe that. And they'll typically do that about 6 weeks out. Now, we do write our content, make sure our scripting is done, all that about 5 to 6 months out. So it's a little bit further out. And one thing that I absolutely love doing is because I just talked to you guys just briefly. I mentioned I want our campus, Life Kids pastors and team to not have to worry about content so they can focus on their leaders and their community and families. That's the same thing our heart is to every church. And so we actually have a website that's 1,000,000% free, open.life.church. It's where every little bit of content we've ever created at Life.Church, everything, graphics, promos, images, everything, every one of Craig's messages, all free, completely free, because we recognize there's churches across the world who are wanting to get started, who are wanting to grow their ministry, but they spend their money, a lot of their time, focusing on the curriculum side. And then what's happening is they don't have the opportunities to really invest in their leaders and their families. So with all the stuff that we create, completely free, that you can download and use, so all of your quote unquote budgeting dollars for content can go right into your leaders, right into your community, and right into your families, which is awesome. We actually tell you where do we buy our stuff at. So if you do have to purchase something that we have to purchase ourselves, we tell you exactly where to get it. So I would definitely go to open.life.church. I'd be glad to help you with that. It's one of our church's big mission. Like I said, the capital C church, one thing that we have a team of people who I'm hesitating on the number because I think there's about 10 to 12 people that are full-time staff that are fully devoted to making sure that all of our campuses and all these churches are fully resourced with the open network stuff. So even if you get into open and you're like, I have a question, where do I download this? Or I'm having trouble download this. We actually have a team of people who are there to help you, who are excited about it. And so, yeah, awesome. Definitely check it out.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the campus level, kids pastors, which again, most people are going to relate to a little more. And I don't know how much you are involved with this or even what that looks like, but in terms of hiring a campus kids pastor, what are you looking for?
Yeah, that's actually a big, big part of my role. If I could really narrow down what I do, one of our directional leader team members, I was talking to him and he said, Justin, you're the gatekeeper for the culture in Life Kids. Whatever you allow happen is because of you, and whatever you don't allow happen is because of you. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. But it's exciting because I love what I get to do. And one of the things that I get to do, a big role is bringing on campus staff and developing them. So when I look at that, there are some things that I would say, probably 4 things that I think are extremely important into hiring a kids pastor. The first one is I need someone who has strong work ethic. I need someone who can get the work done, who can work hard, who can fight, who has grit, who has all those things. Having that strong work ethic is highly important to me. We kind of joke around here. I'd rather pull back a horse than kick a donkey. I'm looking for someone who's got some go in them. The second thing, which is all these things are equally important, just to let you know. The second thing is someone with integrity. We need to have you want to have someone who has integrity. It's extremely, extremely important. The third thing is going to be resilience. We need someone with some resilience, someone who can take feedback, someone who can walk through a tough situation, someone who can have things just kind of hit them a little hard, whatever it may be. Things may not go their way, but they'll stand back up. They'll still put the hard hat on. They'll get that drive. They'll get that grit, and they'll move forward. And the last thing that I think is extremely important when hiring kids pastors is teachability. You need to have someone who's extremely teachable, who's moldable, who recognizes that we focus on the outcomes first instead of our own agenda. Those are big time important. In some kind of subcategories, if you will, outside of those 4 things, someone who can clearly communicate and cast vision. They can clearly articulate the why, articulate what's going on, because we found at Life.Church, and it's like in anything else, and I talk to other churches, and it's extremely important. Anything that you do, you can teach someone. The one thing you can't do, or I could say it's extremely hard to do, is teach culture. The culture of what's your senior pastor's vision, or what's your vision. It's tough to teach that culture. And what we say, for instance, if in Life Kids, I'll give you a little inside thing. We do video teaching in Life Kids, and we focus on developing leaders and delegating a leadership to other leaders. If you want to come to work at Life.Church and you are passionate about leading from stage and teaching kids and leading through worship, while that's extremely important and very, very valuable, it just doesn't work in our context. And then just same thing for us. If we have someone that wants to go to your church and they're like, and your senior pastor, your leadership is like, man, I really think it's important to have live teaching, then our team one of our people may not work for there. We all have the mindset to reaching families and kids, to have a deep relationship with Christ. We all do it differently. And for us, that's the same thing. And it's hard to teach that culture. And so one thing that we never take a risk on is culture.
That's good. And I feel like from what I know of your church, that's one of the driving things is that you have this culture that's clear and defined. And so it's easier to protect one, but also kind of pass on to other people. That's really good. Yeah. And something else I think about when I think about Life.Church for sure is leadership development. Yeah. You seem to you have that too. And it's part of the culture is what I've learned, but how do campus kids pastors recruit and develop leaders? And how does Central help, if at all? Like, is there a role that Central plays to help them do that better?
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things for us. We're always trying to find opportunities to grow and be a better leader, not trying to do things that help you be successful for just this weekend only, but doing things that help you create a culture that long lasts us. Like, I want to create a culture that isn't dependent on me, but is dependent on what we believe here as a church. This may be like an obvious answer, but man, it's the thing that works the best for us is conversations, and like connections is the biggest way to recruit people. It is all about, and Reggie Joyner talks about this. And if you're a person that attended the Orange Conference, back in May, you know this, and it's so true. It's like making it personal. Every conversation that you have with someone, it's personal to them, not blanketed across. Now, we've tried that. We've had campus pastors from stage really cast really good, clear vision of, man, the impact they can make in kids ministries. And yes, we do get some people from that, but there's something special when I look at someone directly in the eyes and say, for instance, Nick, man, I love your heart. I got to see you engage with your kid over the past 4 or 5 weeks. You know what? I think you can make a major impact in this ministry. I want you to come serve with me in this ministry because I want to help you be the best that God's called you to be. It's hard to say no to that when someone's passively recruiting you with vision and clear articulation instead of saying like, hey, you want to come help serving life kids? Man, Craig talks about this all the time. People will give their time for the what, but they'll give their lives for the why. And so are you giving a compelling why to someone needs to be a part of their church, of your church and of your ministry? I would encourage you to call them to something higher, not a low bar, not a subpar, but raise them to a high bar and expect them to come to that. What's also interesting is creating a fun environment that people want to be a part of, and people want to follow someone who's real. They want to follow someone who's personal and helps them to be needed and known. And so if you have a fun, engaging environment where kids are having a good time, you want to be a part of that party. You want to figure out, how do I get involved with that? That's fun. I want to try that out. And so I think all those things are extremely important. And one thing I'll say on this, Nick, to help reframe a little bit is what we do is we try to push people not to like how to do stuff, but why we need to get these people brought in. And one thing that we've been sharing a lot of recently is every person that you come across on the weekend has a next step. If they are not serving, I think it's highly important is to recruit that person and find a fit in your ministry instead of you knowing, okay, I've got to fill these 2 roles. Let me find someone to fill those 2 roles. But instead, I go, Nick, I got to have you on my team. What are you excited about? Are you interested in serving with kids or for kids? You know? And then you're like, man, I really don't want to serve with kids. I don't like kids. I don't want to be around kids. I'm like, perfect. I got a spot for you. And then you make up a role, whatever it is, you get because it's more important to get someone connected and to become a spiritual contributor instead of a spiritual consumer. It's more important to do that than to miss someone from serving because you just don't have a role for them. So it's been a big thing right now we're really working on is how do we get everybody in the church plugged in and serving in Life Kids? Let's just figure it out. So
now, how do your leaders, because I know this is a struggle for most children's leaders, is it's hard for them to create relationships and have conversations to recruit people because they're spending so much time in kids ministry. And obviously you talked about how that's what you're not looking for. Like, you don't want people on stage and doing the roles. You want them leading. So I'm assuming the answer is because they're leading, they're free to then to go have these conversations. But is that the case? And how do they do that? Where do they meet people like that?
Yeah. It's actually, you could still meet those people in your life kid or your kid's hallway. Because you have lines, there's lines of parents who are standing there, make those connections. You can meet people at guest services right up front in the lobby. We actually make a lot of connections in our main lobby. But a significant amount of our connections is your senior pastor has asked you to be responsible for your kids' ministry and recruiting people and finding those people inside of there, that's true. But he didn't ask you to do it by yourself. So asking others to help you be on the outlook and out on the what's the word I'm looking for? Have your
eyes open.
I was backwards. On the lookout for finding that fit. And so being able to talk to people and cast that vision. So it's not just you versus the world, but you have an army of people who's also excited about making that. And recognize every conversation you have in the lobby doesn't turn someone into serving. Every conversation you have in the lobby points back to a next step in your conversation. Every person you can talk to week after week after week, making a conversation like, hey, you mind if I call you this week to have a conversation? I want to talk to you. I want to meet you with coffee. I want to have a phone call with you, whatever. Like I'd use the kind of a quasi example with you, Nick. I said, I've seen you for the past 3 or 4 weeks really connecting with kids. I'm complimenting you. I'm observing you. I'm showing that I recognize there's something special about you. A little practical thing that if you find yourself in a position of having to be in a room a lot or struggling with people, a mindset that we, just to help people think through, is put your name, put your name in the slot to being in every room, okay? And you realize, oh my gosh, I can't be in every room. And then you have to have the mindset of how do I get myself out of every room, out of every slot. Because if you find yourself constantly in the hallway, constantly in a room, you've got to help put yourself in a visual mindset to recognize, I got to get out of the room. I got to get out of the hallway. I've got to get in the lobby, because that's so important. And I can really talk on this a long time. It could really almost depend on, are you hanging on to things so much that it's focused on you dependent and not developing others and leading other people to do the things that you can easily do? They can do it. So.
Yeah. And that, I mean, obviously that's a window into a little bit of like what their Sunday would look like, but what else would be involved in a typical Sunday for a Life Kids campus pastor?
Yeah. Whenever you're looking at a typical Sunday, the main thing like I said, you don't want to be walking around with a clipboard in your hand, isn't an analogy that we'll use occasionally. And a reason why I say that, I remember visiting one of our campuses, and I was just visiting there on the weekend. I was talking to the kids pastor. We were hanging out, chatting, and service was about to release, and they needed to make some connections with some people before the service really got going. And people were coming in, people were leaving. So it's just that mass chaotic area. And I followed them for about, 100 yards to where they needed to go. And at the end of that 100 yards that we walked to, I asked them, I said, hey, what if I told you that there was a new family that wanted to talk to you but chose not to? And what if I saw 2 leaders who wanted to make a connection with you, but you didn't get to do that? How would you feel? And like, oh my gosh, that would crush me. I'd hate that. And I was like, well, it just happened. And you're like, what do you mean? I said that you went from point A to point B with a clipboard in your hand and an agenda on your mind, that you missed opportunities to make connections. So let's get rid of the clipboard for the rest of the weekend. And I want you to go slowly as you walk down the Life Kids hallway. I want you to go slowly as you go through the lobby and make conversations, make connections. And so one thing that we talk about what they need to be doing on the weekend is what actually they shouldn't be doing, and what they shouldn't be doing is tasks. What you do Monday through Friday, and how effective you are as a leader Monday through Friday gives you the margin to lead on a Saturday and Sunday. If Monday and through Friday you're not able to really let go of those tasks and relinquish some of those responsibilities, they're going to creep up you on the weekend. And the reason I know that's so passionate, I'm so true to that, because that happened to me. I missed some huge opportunities in my ministry at Life.Church because it was all about me and what I can do, instead of let me get less and less of me and allow me to focus so much on making sure that my small group leaders, my coaches, and guest services leaders have everything that they need to be successful. And so connecting with parents, connecting with leaders, high level observation, is extremely important. Even this past weekend, Nick, I'll share this last story. I was in our connect room, which is our 1st through 4th grade portion of our ministry. And I took a look in there, and I saw a leader kind of sitting off to the side on their phone, sitting down on the ground, not engaging with anyone. And instead of me jumping in there, I just called our associate kids pastor, and I was like, hey, do you know what this is about? What's going on? And she just said, no, I don't know. Let me get a coach and let me have them help out. And so I just let go. 15 minutes later, I connected back. I was like, hey, how'd that conversation go? She goes, it went really, really well. And the reason why it went well is she didn't jump in and rescue and solve it. She led her coach to be able to do that. And so it allowed her to create more margin to think at a higher level, and allowed her a learning opportunity to lead through other people. And they were able to lead that coach to help that leader engage, connect back, and see what was going on. I don't know what was going on, but allowed them to connect, engage, re-engage back with the other leaders and the kids. And so that leader, that staff member, that associate would have never been able to do that if they were in the weeds doing stuff, if they were in a room, they were caught up doing things that weren't important, but she had the margin to be able to do those things. And so kind of goes back to that margin thing again.
And leading through other people. That's good.
100%.
Last question. And I know you talked about how involved you are with like bringing on, hiring new campus kids pastors. But what about success? What does success look like for a campus kids pastor, and how is that determined?
Oh my gosh. I think it's going, when I go to success, I think it kind of goes back into those attributes, you know. If I have a Life Kids pastor who is consistently, and this is not just Life Kids pastor, any staff member who is consistently looking like, how can I improve? How can I get better? How can I help my leaders engage better? Or how can I make this big church feel small? The more they're thinking about that, the better. The ones that I really think are really doing the best job is whenever they know, this is going to sound really odd, they understand what's going in their ministry, but they don't know all the details. And what I mean by that is because they've trusted their leaders around them. They trusted their associates that they lead. They can give a snapshot. They can give a good high level view of where things are, but they're not so like in the weeds detailed, that they are not able to really see future handed. If I asked one of the kids pastors, like maybe Stephen, our kids pastor at OKC, what's going on, he can give me a great high level view on what's happening on the campus. But if I need to, like, hey, I heard about this one particular leader, what's the latest on them? He can easily tap down to his associates, or he can easily connect with one of his coaches, and they'll know that answer, which is great. Now, if Stephen knows the answer to everything all the time, then it's one of those things that can become a struggle. It's like, if he's in all those details, he hasn't quite given himself the margin to be able to go, oh my gosh, I've got to figure out how do I gain more leaders at our Sunday night service, or how do I make guest services better, because he's so in the weeds. And so I hope that makes sense, Nick, and it's clear. I think those are the things that are making a successful kids pastor for in our organization and what we see. And it really goes back to those work ethic, integrity, resilience, teachability. Those things are absolutely crucial. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and you guys obviously care about, I mean, you're tracking data like attendance and kids and leaders, leader to kid ratio and all that stuff. But you're right, those other things are the most important things. And even the way you described like his job at OKC, and if he's leading well, I mean, you're judging it based on leadership, not production. Like, what did you do? It's more like, what have you led? You know, so you know about it, but you don't know all about it because you didn't do it all. You led it all. That's good. That's awesome.
And challenging them real fast. So what are you doing with your margin? That helps me understand whenever, like, okay, you're leading at a high level now. What are you doing at that high level? Through there, I can also determine, is he thinking about the right things, or is he thinking about other things? And I want to share this real fast to make it very clear. it's very important to know what's going on in the weeds of your ministry. It's very important to know those things, because if you don't know the nuts and bolts of what's actually happening, if you don't know that, then you don't know what to fix, or more importantly, you don't know where to put fire at. I think it just gets damaging when you live in there. You camp out in the weeds and you're not able to really gain traction and kind of think at a higher level. And so I just want to make sure when I say that, it's not just ignoring all the details, because those are extremely important. So I think everyone gets my heart on that, hopefully.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Well, as we kind of wrap up, how can people connect with you? And, if they want to follow on social media or contact you or anything like that, how can they do that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'd love to get out my email address. That's a great way for me to connect with you. It's easy. It's simple. It's justin.edge, EDGE, justin.edge at Life.Church. Easy way to get a hold of me. I'm on Instagram. It's just Justin Edge 1. You can catch me on Facebook as well. But man, yeah, I'd love to connect with people. I love corresponding with people in the email. I can either answer it real fast, or I can connect you to Open Network if you'd like to. I can connect you with a Life Kids pastor who's in a portable scenario, if that's you. If you want to get connected with a brand new team member and how they felt with their onboarding, I can connect you with that. Or maybe you're a tenured tenured kids pastor who just needs to talk and brainstorm with someone. I can help you with that, or I can point you around. I mean, my heart is to really support you as much as we possibly can. So Instagram, your Facebook, email, that's all that good stuff. And of course, I can help you with Open and give you some of those free resources that we talked about earlier on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's very generous. We thank you for that, for sure. And thanks for taking the time to come on the podcast and give us kind of inside look at Life Kids.
Yeah, Nick, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. It's great meeting you again, connecting with you, and looking forward to seeing how God continues to use this in this platform.
Cool. Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, man. Talk to you later.
All right, there you go. I'm sure some of you did not listen to the episode with Vince Parker from Life.Church where we talked about student ministry a few episodes ago. But if you did, I felt like this is very, very similar. You can tell the consistency, the similarities between how they run their student ministry, how they run their children's ministry. Certainly they're distinct and there are things that are unique in how they do that, but there's lots of similarities for sure. And they just do a great job there. Some of the action items I think of coming out of that interview, one would be to empower other leaders. We talked about this in the episode with Vince, that clearly Life.Church, one of the things they just expect their staff to do is to empower volunteers to lead in big ways. So for you, maybe that's recruiting a coach to lead some team of 8 to 10 or 12 people, or maybe you're going to ask them to step up and lead in an even bigger way. Maybe it's going to be, hey, volunteer, can you lead all of elementary, all of preschool, or all of our small groups, or all of our large group, something like that. Who can you ask this month and empower and give leadership and authority to as a volunteer to lead in a big way? Another action step would be to simplify if you're in a multi-site church, which most of us listening are not, but some of you are. And I think a great action step would be to simplify. That's part of the power, part of the secret, I think, of Life.Church's success is that they're really focused. And so it's really consistent. It's really clear. It doesn't get, confusing or extremely different from campus to campus because they have really focused and simplified what they do. So how can you do that? And maybe even if you're not multi-site, that's a great step for you. And then third is to visit open.life.church. Lots of great resources there. If you subscribe to my email list, I'll give you my favorite kids resource right now on the Open site. And you can get all that and the show notes and everything else at nickblevins.com/episode 154. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope it was helpful. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing it. Leave ratings and reviews and all of that. I appreciate every bit of that. And most importantly, I just hope it helps you work on your ministry, do ministry better, and get some ideas just like I love to get to use at your church. So thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time on the Family Ministry Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. We hope this helps you maximize your church's potential. We would love to hear stories of how you apply what you've learned. You can do that by leaving a comment on iTunes or in the show notes at nickblevins.com.